Motorcycles today are faster, safer, and more advanced than ever before. So why do so many riders still believe the best days of motorcycling are behind us? In this video, we're tracing the machines, innovations, regulations, and decisions that quietly changed everything and ultimately brought an end to motorcycling's golden age. And by the end, you'll understand why some of the most legendary motorcycles ever built could never be made again. Stay with us, because the real reason isn't what most riders think. Let's go back for a moment. Picture a workshop in Stevenage, England, in the years following the Second World War. Britain was still rebuilding. Money was tight. Most motorcycles existed for a simple reason. People needed transportation. They were practical tools, not objects of obsession. Then Vincent built something extraordinary. In 1948, the company unveiled a motorcycle called the Black Shadow. On paper, it looked almost impossible. A big V-twin engine, around 55 horsepower, a top speed approaching 125 miles per hour. Today, those numbers might not sound shocking. Back then, they sounded absurd. Many automobiles of the ERA struggled to reach 70 miles per hour. The Black Shadow could nearly double that. Road testers were stunned. One British publication called it the fastest standard motorcycle in the world. Others admitted that the motorcycle seemed capable of more than most riders were willing to ask from it. And that is what made machines like the Vincent so important. They weren't merely transportation. They represented possibility. They promised speed, freedom, danger, and adventure in a way few machines ever had before. More importantly, they demanded something from the person sitting on them: skill, judgment, commitment. There were no electronic safety nets waiting to rescue a mistake. Every decision belonged to the rider. That relationship would become one of the defining characteristics of motorcycling's golden age. And no photograph captured that spirit better than a nearly half-naked rider lying flat across a motorcycle on a vast white salt flat in Utah. We'll get to him in a moment. If this is the kind of motorcycle history you enjoy, hit the like button, drop a hype in the comments, and subscribe. Every one of those small actions helps keep these stories alive and helps us keep digging into the machines that shape the riding world. And ideas alone don't create legends. What transformed this period into the golden age were the machines themselves. And the next chapter belongs to the motorcycles that shaped entire generations and changed the direction of motorcycling forever. If the Vincent Black Shadow showed the world what a motorcycle could become, the years that followed turned that promise into an entire industry. For a long stretch of the 20th century, Britain sat at the center of the motorcycling world, and not by accident. The country was producing machines that were fast, charismatic, and full of personality. If you walked through a dealership in America during the 1950s or early 1960s and asked for a serious motorcycle, chances were good you would be pointed toward a British one. Three names stood above almost everyone else: Triumph, Norton, BSA. Each earned its reputation differently. Triumph built motorcycles that felt lively and eager. Norton became famous for machines that seemed to carve through corners with effortless precision. BSA produced motorcycles on a scale few competitors could match, placing riders of every experience level onto two wheels. Together, they created something larger than a collection of brands. They created an image of motorcycling as adventure, as freedom, as speed mixed with mechanical know-how. Their influence spread far beyond Britain. American riders embraced these motorcycles with enthusiasm, drawn to machines that felt lighter, sharper, and more sporting than the heavyweight cruisers many had grown up around. By the early 1960s, British manufacturers appeared untouchable. Their motorcycles filled showrooms across the world. Their racing victories kept piling up. Their engineering philosophies shaped the industry. From the outside, it looked like Britain had already won. But history is full of industries that believed the future belonged to them right before everything changed. Because while British manufacturers were refining a formula they had spent decades perfecting, another company on the opposite side of the world was preparing to ask a dangerous question. What if a motorcycle didn't have to be British to be the best? Before we answer that, I'd love to hear from you. Which legendary motorcycle left the biggest impression on you? And have you ever had the chance to ride one? Leave a comment below, because the stories, memories, and experiences of real riders often reveal details that never make it into the history books. And just as Britain seemed firmly in control of motorcycling's future, something happened that changed the direction of the entire industry. The company responsible wasn't Triumph, it wasn't Norton, and it wasn't BSA, it was Honda. In 1969, Honda introduced a motorcycle called the CB750. Looking back, it is difficult to overstate how important that machine was. Because Honda wasn't trying to build a better British motorcycle. Honda was trying to rethink what riders actually wanted. The CB750 combined features that rarely appeared together on an affordable production motorcycle. It had a smooth four-cylinder engine mounted across the frame, an electric starter that eliminated the familiar ritual of kickstarting, and a front disc brake at a time when many competitors still relied on drum brakes. But none of those features alone explain why it became legendary. The real breakthrough was reliability. For decades, riders had accepted mechanical quirks as part of the experience. Oil leaks, stubborn starting, loose fasteners, and regular adjustments were simply considered normal. Owning a motorcycle often meant becoming a mechanic whether you wanted to or not. Honda challenged that entire mindset. The CB750 delivered exciting performance while demanding far less attention from its owner. It started easily, it ran consistently, it inspired confidence, and riders noticed. Motorcycle magazines praised it, customers bought it in huge numbers, competitors scrambled to respond. More importantly, it changed expectations. Suddenly, speed alone was no longer enough. Character alone was no longer enough. Riders were discovering that performance and dependability could exist in the same machine. That realization marked the beginning of a new era, and for Britain's manufacturers, it marked the beginning of a very difficult decline. Honda had changed the benchmark, but Kawasaki looked at the CB750 and saw something different. Not a finish line, a starting point. The company had actually been developing its own large four-cylinder motorcycle before Honda stunned the industry. When the CB750 arrived, Kawasaki faced a choice: rush its machine into production and settle for second place, or go back and build something even more ambitious. They chose the harder path. The result appeared in 1972, the Kawasaki Z1. Everything about it felt larger, faster, and more aggressive. Its 903 cubic centimeter inline-4 produced more power than the Honda and pushed the motorcycle into performance territory few production machines had ever reached. Yet the Z1's greatest achievement wasn't speed. Plenty of motorcycles had been fast before. What made the Kawasaki special was that it combined breathtaking performance with the dependability riders were beginning to expect from Japanese engineering. It could devour highway miles, survive endurance competition, and still start the next morning without complaint. That combination mattered, because by the early 1970s, riders were no longer choosing between excitement and reliability. For the first time, they could have both. Before long, manufacturers across Japan were building motorcycles around a similar formula. Smooth four-cylinder engines, electric starting, everyday practicality, and performance that would have seemed unbelievable only a decade earlier. The industry had found a new blueprint, and riders loved it. But the four-cylinder motorcycles weren't the only stars of the ERA, not even close. Because while Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Yamaha were refining the formula that would dominate the industry, they were also building something far more unpredictable: two-strokes. And if you've never experienced a big two-stroke at full song, it is difficult to explain why riders became obsessed with them. A two-stroke engine was lighter, simpler, and astonishingly powerful for its size. Instead of delivering power in a smooth, predictable wave, it often felt like it had a split personality. At lower speeds, everything seemed normal. Then the engine reached its power band, and all hell broke loose. The most infamous example was Kawasaki's H2 Mach 4. With a 748 cubic centimeter three-cylinder engine and explosive acceleration, it developed a reputation that bordered on mythology. Riders nicknamed it the Widowmaker because it demanded complete respect every time the throttle was opened. Yet that danger was part of the attraction. These motorcycles felt wild, untamed, alive. Suzuki offered a different interpretation with the GT750, a liquid-cooled machine that blended two-stroke excitement with genuine long-distance comfort. Yamaha went even further with the RD series, creating lightweight motorcycles that introduced countless young riders to serious performance for the first time. What united all of them was character: the smell of burned oil, the sharp crackle from the exhaust, the sudden rush of acceleration. They weren't loved because they were practical. They were loved because they made every ride unforgettable. And that unforgettable scream would eventually become one of the first casualties of the modern age. We'll come back to that. Every rider has heard the legends, but the reality wasn't always perfect. So tell us in the comments, what's the most frustrating mechanical problem you've ever experienced on a motorcycle? A breakdown, an electrical issue, a failed part? Share your story below because these challenges were a huge part of motorcycle ownership during that era. If the Japanese Revolution proved that motorcycles could be faster, smoother, and astonishingly dependable, the Italians spent the same era chasing something far harder to measure. They chased feeling, and few moments capture that better than a spring afternoon in Italy. The year was 1972. The event was the Imola 200. Ducati arrived as a small manufacturer, facing rivals with deeper pockets, larger factories, and far greater expectations. On paper, they weren't supposed to win. Then a rider named Paul Smart rewrote the script. Mounted on Ducati's new 750 cubic centimeter V-twin, Smart rode one of the most important races in the company's history. Against heavily favored competition, he crossed the finish line first and handed Ducati a victory that changed the brand forever. What happened afterward is what makes the story matter. Because Ducati didn't simply celebrate the win, they turned it into a motorcycle. The result was the 750 Supersport, a machine born directly from the biggest triumph the company had ever experienced. It carried the look, the sound, and the attitude of a race winner onto ordinary roads. But the motorcycle itself was only part of the story. Hidden inside was an idea that perfectly captured the Italian approach to engineering. Most engines use springs to close their valves. Ducati chose a far more complicated solution. Their desmodromic system mechanically opened and closed the valves, eliminating the need for springs altogether. It was expensive, it was unconventional, and it was completely unnecessary to anyone thinking only about cost, which is precisely why Ducati loved it. The company built motorcycles the way artists paint or musicians compose. Logic mattered, performance mattered, but emotion mattered too. The engine pulsed differently. The exhaust note carried a different rhythm. Even standing still, the motorcycle seemed to possess a personality of its own. That was the magic of the ERA. A rider could walk into a showroom and choose between completely different visions of what a motorcycle should be. A refined Japanese four-cylinder, a snarling two-stroke, a charismatic Italian V-twin, a traditional British twin. Each machine reflected the country that created it. Different solutions, different priorities, different souls. Yet for all their differences, these motorcycles shared something remarkably important. Something so common that riders rarely stop to think about it. And that overlooked detail would eventually become one of the biggest casualties of motorcycling's transformation. Manufacturers could adapt to many challenges, but this one struck at the heart of how motorcycles had been built for decades. Because the next casualty wasn't a company or a model, it was a technology that had defined motorcycling for generations: the carburetor. Now here's the part that really matters. The Vincent, the Bonneville, the CB750, the Z1, the RD350, the Ducati 750 Supersport, they looked nothing alike. They came from different countries, served different purposes, and appealed to completely different riders. But underneath all that variety, they shared the same fundamental idea. They were mechanical, not digital, not software-driven, mechanical. Most breathed through carburetors. There was no computer measuring conditions and making constant adjustments behind the scenes. Fuel and air met through springs, passages, jets, and simple physics. A skilled rider could often tell something was wrong before opening a toolbox. The engine would tell you. Many were air-cooled as well. Cooling fins, moving air, and exposed metal did the work that radiators, sensors, and electric fans would later handle. You could stand beside the motorcycle and understand how it survived. Even the throttle felt different. Twist your wrist and a steel cable physically opened the carburetors. No processors, no algorithms, no electronic interpretation of your request. Just a direct connection between rider and machine. That relationship extended beyond riding. Owners adjusted valves, synchronized carburetors, replaced cables, and rebuilt engines in their own garages. The motorcycle wasn't a sealed product, it was a machine you could understand. And that simple idea, the rider as participant rather than operator, is what made the golden age possible. But while riders were falling in love with these machines, something very different was happening behind factory walls. The golden age looks glorious in hindsight. The motorcycles became legends. Race crowds grew larger. Magazine covers celebrated new heroes almost every month. But the companies building those dreams were often far less healthy than they appeared. Britain is the clearest example. For decades, names like Triumph, BSA, and Norton had stood at the center of the motorcycling world. Their motorcycles crossed oceans, filled showrooms, and shaped an entire generation of riders. Yet admiration does not pay factory bills. As the industry entered the late 1960s and early 1970s, many British manufacturers found themselves trapped by aging equipment, costly labor disputes, and growing competition from Japan. The motorcycles still had character. The business model was beginning to crack. One company after another stumbled. BSA collapsed. Norton endured repeated financial crises. Triumph's troubles became so severe that workers at the Meriden factory famously occupied their own plant in an effort to keep production alive. Across the Atlantic, Harley-Davidson faced a different battle. Under AMF ownership, quality concerns damaged the company's reputation, even as major investments poured into modernization and expansion. And that reveals an uncomfortable truth. Many of the motorcycles we celebrate today were engineering masterpieces, but financial nightmares. From the saddle, it felt like a golden age. From the boardroom, it often looked like survival. And as those pressures mounted, forces far larger than any motorcycle company were beginning to reshape the entire industry. Carburetors could evolve into electronic fuel injection, allowing manufacturers to keep four-stroke motorcycles alive. But one family of engines had no such path forward, and that next casualty would disappear almost entirely from public roads. If you were around motorcycles during the golden age, you probably remember them before you even saw them. You heard them first. A sharp, frantic exhaust note, the unmistakable smell hanging in the air. An engine that seemed calm one moment and completely unhinged the next. They were fast, light, and wonderfully simple. For years, two-strokes ruled racetracks and thrilled riders because they delivered extraordinary performance from remarkably small engines. But hidden inside that brilliance was a flaw they could never fully escape. A traditional two-stroke allows part of its fuel mixture to leave through the exhaust before it can be burned. In an era of tightening emission standards, that became a serious problem. Manufacturers fought hard to save them. Yamaha's RZ350 even arrived with a catalytic converter, an attempt to keep the two-stroke alive in a changing world. For a while, the battle continued, but every new regulation made survival more difficult. Machines like the Aprilia RS250 represented a magnificent final chapter, yet the outcome was already becoming clear. The two-stroke wasn't replaced because riders stopped loving it, it disappeared because the world around it changed, and that was the first warning that some legends would not evolve. They would simply vanish. And up to this point, we've seen how the industry changed, how regulations tightened, and how some of motorcycling's most iconic technology started disappearing. So I'm interested to know, if you could choose only one, would you rather own a perfectly sorted carbureted motorcycle or a modern fuel-injected machine? Drop your answer in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. The emissions were only part of the story. At the same time motorcycles were becoming cleaner, they were also becoming smarter. The shift began quietly. One of the earliest signs was ABS. At first, many riders dismissed it as unnecessary. Good technique, they argued, was all you needed. The trouble is that panic doesn't care how experienced you are. When researchers looked at the data, ABS consistently reduced certain types of crashes. And once governments and manufacturers saw those results, the technology stopped being a luxury feature and started becoming standard equipment. That opened the door. Soon, the mechanical throttle cable that had connected rider and engine for generations began disappearing. In its place came ride-by-wire systems, where a computer interprets the rider's input before delivering power. Then the pace accelerated. Traction control, riding modes, quick shifters, electronic suspension, lean-sensitive safety systems guided by sophisticated sensors that constantly monitor what the motorcycle is doing. The result is remarkable. Modern motorcycles are safer, faster, and more capable than ever before. But something fundamental changed along the way. The old motorcycle relied almost entirely on the rider. The modern motorcycle increasingly works as a partnership between rider and software. And that distinction becomes very important in the next part of this story. Because most people often misunderstand this part. They look at a modern motorcycle packed with electronics and assume manufacturers simply lost their way. That engineers forgot how to build exciting machines, that somewhere along the road, character was traded for convenience. But that's not really what happened. Ask yourself a simple question. If riders love the motorcycles of the golden age so much, why doesn't a major manufacturer just build one again? Not something inspired by the past, the real thing. A brand new motorcycle built exactly the way it would have been during the early 1970s. The answer is surprisingly simple. In most major markets, that motorcycle would struggle to make it out of the certification process. Modern motorcycles must satisfy emissions requirements, noise limits, safety standards, durability testing, and a long list of regulations that barely existed during the analog ERA. A carbureted engine, old-style brakes, and purely mechanical systems might be charming, but charm does not pass compliance testing. Then comes the financial reality. Designing, certifying, manufacturing, and distributing a new motorcycle costs enormous amounts of money. Nostalgia alone cannot support that investment. That's why modern retro motorcycles are really compromises between two worlds. They look backward, but underneath, they are built to survive the present. And that distinction explains why the golden age can be remembered, preserved, and celebrated, but never truly recreated. Quick thank you to everyone supporting the channel. These videos take a huge amount of research, digging, and fact-checking to put together. And if you'd like to help support future projects and get early access to new releases, consider becoming a member. A strange thing has happened in motorcycling. The motorcycles that were supposedly left behind refuse to disappear. In fact, the further the industry moves into the digital age, the more valuable many of those old machines seem to become. Look at the collector market. A rare Vincent can sell for a fortune. Historic Grand Prix racers attract bidding wars. Motorcycles once parked in ordinary garages now sit under auction lights surrounded by collectors willing to spend extraordinary amounts of money to own them. And that raises an interesting question. Why? Because when a technology becomes truly obsolete, people usually move on. They admire it for a while, then forget about it. That is not what happened here. Instead, riders keep coming back. Not because these motorcycles are faster. Modern bikes settled that argument years ago. Not because they are safer, more reliable, or easier to live with. They are not. What people are chasing is something harder to measure. A feeling, a connection, a relationship between rider and machine that seems increasingly rare in the modern world. And if so many people still value these motorcycles decades later, then maybe the real question is not whether motorcycling changed. The real question is when it changed and what exactly was lost along the way. So let's go back for a moment. Picture a rider standing in his garage decades ago beside a motorcycle that, by modern standards, wasn't perfect. It vibrated, it leaked a little oil, it demanded regular attention. But he knew it inside and out. He knew its sounds, its habits, and its quirks. He knew how to tune it, adjust it, and keep it running with his own hands. And that may be what many riders miss most, because this was never really about horsepower. Modern motorcycles are faster, safer, cleaner, and more reliable than the machines of the past. The difference was the relationship. Older motorcycles asked more from their owners. They required patience, skill, and involvement. Riding and maintaining them were often inseparable parts of the same experience. The engineers never forgot how to build great motorcycles. The world simply changed around them. And as regulations, technology, and expectations evolved, the connection between rider and machine evolved too. That, more than anything else, is what many people mean when they talk about the golden age. Maybe that's the real lesson here. The golden age of motorcycling didn't disappear because engineers forgot how to build great motorcycles. It disappeared because the world around motorcycles changed. And once that happened, there was no going back. But there are still plenty of forgotten stories hiding inside motorcycle history. In the next video, we're chasing another one, another machine, another turning point, another story most riders have never heard told properly. Click on the next video and keep the journey going. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, thanks for watching.